So I still remember my first Halloween as a teacher. I was so excited to bring one of my favorite holidays to life with my little kindergartners. I had decorated my entire classroom, floor to ceiling, in cobwebs, really big spiders. I went all out. It took me a long time to do. But by the end of Halloween, the day itself, I was actually laying on my classroom carpet face up, staring at the ceiling because I was completely zonked and exhausted and just overwhelmed. So over the years, I've learned that Halloween doesn't have to be that way, and it doesn't have to mean chaos. So today we're going to be talking about how to make it fun while still staying and keeping it under control. So with that being said, let's dive in.
Hey, teacher bestie. My name's Helena, and I'm the creator of the Present Teacher Podcast. I'm a first year teacher coach, and in this podcast, you are going to learn everything from simple, actionable classroom management, social emotional learning, and teacher wellness strategies. You know that impact you want to make in the classroom? Well, we're going to make it happen here.
So the first tip I have for you to make Halloween fun without losing your complete mind when it comes to having that day is to plan for high energy. So students are naturally going to be more excited, not only that day, but that entire week. So since the energy is going to be high, that means behaviors are just naturally going to be on the rise. They're going to need extra reminders. And let's be honest, many families are giving their students sugar for breakfast right now, which just makes it a whole lot harder to keep them under control. So that's why I recommend keeping lessons short and incorporate extra movement breaks or brain breaks as you can, and just plan for that high energy so you're not surprised when it happens. The second thing I recommend is to keep routines tight. I thought when I had my first Halloween that I would do fun activities all week and just completely throw the schedule out the window, but what ended up happening is it made for a chaotic week. My kids were dysregulated, they didn't know what to expect, and it just led to a huge rise in behaviors. So instead of throwing off the routine and causing more chaos, I recommend keeping routines tight. So, structure actually makes fun smoother. And so, what I ended up doing is I kept the same schedule but switched out our typical lessons for activities. So, for example, during math time, I would still have our typical math, but I might incorporate Halloween activities during that time. For reading, I kept it at our normal reading routine, but I might have done something, a fun twist for Halloween for that year. So, keeping the structure the same is really going to help you prevent a lot of disruptive behavior from happening because there's still some structure in the day that'll help regulate your kids. The third thing I recommend is to use transitions wisely. So, when it comes to going from one activity to another, this is actually the number one time when most disruptive behavior occurs. So, it's really important to lean into procedures during this time. Reteach procedures and transitions as necessary to keep the structure and to keep disruptive behavior on the low. I have a classroom procedure slides. So I have a specific way that I teach classroom procedures. So if you want to see what that's like and you want examples, definitely go check out my classroom procedure slides. I'll link in the description, but they're already done for you and they have everything from lining up to coming in the morning to turning in homework or turning in assignments. And it just kind of gives you a general idea of how, not only how I teach procedures, but which procedures I'm teaching in my classroom. And also, what I like to do during this time is I like to really lean into classroom jobs and music. In previous weeks of content, I've actually talked about how I personally like to use music to transition from one activity to another. So if you want to learn more about that, definitely go check that out in the past weeks. Like I said, I've talked about how I use classroom jobs and music to minimize disruptive behavior during transitions. The next thing that I highly recommend you do is to channel the energy. As we talked about earlier, energy is going to be on the rise. Students are going to be naturally more energetic. So how can we use that energy, that extra moving around? How can we give that a purpose? So here are a couple things that I like to do specifically during the week leading up to Halloween to kind of help channel that energy in a specific direction. So the first thing is themed activities that review or teach new content. I like doing for primary Pete the Cat and the Five Little Pumpkins. I actually do a whole theme that week around this. So all the activities we do are going to be from that. And oftentimes I won't teach any new content. If anything, I'm just reviewing what we've learned in the year so far. And I use that as a review week because oftentimes my students have such high energy that learning new concepts at that time is just not really realistic. Another thing I like to do is maintain boundaries, especially during this week. It can be really hard. Like I said, our kids' energy are everywhere. They might become dysregulated. Their diets might be impacted. Their sleep schedule might be impacted. So maintaining those boundaries, being clear and concise with my consequences, not giving a ton of warnings is really important to maintain the structure for this week while still having fun. Another thing I like to do is extra mindfulness and grounding activities this week to bring energy down. So, whenever I notice that the energy is starting to rise up, I might put something on, whether that's a video on YouTube, like baby animals, fall ambience while they work. There's mindfulness activities on Go Noodle, stuff like that to just help them breathe and bring their energy down is gonna help us alchemize that energy to where we can use it then towards learning and we can calm and regulate our nervous system. And then the last thing I like to do is I like to model a calm energy. So if I'm high energy up here, my students will meet me. If I come in, down here, my students are going to meet me down here. If I notice they're up here, I'm going to do everything I can to bring the energy down. So I'm going to bring my energy down, and my students are naturally going to match me. So make sure you're being intentional with your energy. And if you notice that things are getting out of hand, make sure to come up with calm energy, and your students will match you and help give them skills and tools and breathing techniques, time with the lights off with our heads down, just to regulate ourselves, breathing techniques to regulate ourselves to bring us down and calm our nervous system. So that wraps up everything on what I personally do the week of Halloween to keep it fun while still structured and calm and not so chaotic that, you just dread the day and you end up laying on your kindergarten carpet facing the ceiling because you're just so exhausted. So, as a recap of what we talked about so far, we talked about plan for high energy. We talked about how to keep routines tight. We talked about how to use transitions wisely. And then we talked about channeling that energy intentionally to benefit you and your learning. So that wraps up everything in order to keep a calm Halloween, yet fun Halloween. If you found this helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could like or subscribe. That way, wherever you're tuning in from, that way more teachers can get more content like this. And if you want to take it a step further and you want more tips on classroom management, I definitely recommend checking out my classroom management guide. This is my guide that wraps up the top 10 most commonly asked questions I get in regards to classroom management. Put the answer in a guide, and then just like a short page answer. And then if you want a further explanation, I actually linked to additional podcasts and YouTube videos. So you don't have to sift through all my content to find the answer. You can just click and find it directly, which is going to be super helpful since I'm now at over 150 weeks of content. So it's free. My gift to you, definitely go check that out. If you want to take it a step further and you want the templates, things like those classroom procedure slides I talked about, if you want things like my classroom jobs, how I run those, you want super improver walls, you want to see what my communication with family looks like in regards to behavior, definitely go check out my classroom management bundle. This bundle has all of the done for you templates I use in my classroom. Even if you want inspiration and just kind of a behind the scenes look at what's going on in my classroom, definitely go check that out for inspiration. And a step further, if you want to know the strategy behind everything going on in my classroom, definitely check out the Present Teacher Circle. The Present Teacher Circle is my community where I help new and first year teachers come up with systems that work best for them. In the first couple months, we focus on classroom management. I have lessons in there, templates, and even a 15-day classroom management challenge. And then once you move on from there, what I like about this program is there's so many other topics we cover. For example, a couple months we talk about planning, a couple months we talk about grading. We talk about prepping, communication, everything you need to know as a new teacher. And what I love about it is it's all open. So you can jump around and focus on whatever you need at the time, or find your answer in there, or find templates in there. So definitely go check that out. We would love to have you. That wraps up everything. Which one of these strategies are you going to be using this week for Halloween? Let me know in the comments or send me a DM. I would love to know. As always, remember we are stronger together, and I'll see you in the next one, Teacher Bestie. Bye!
Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. I hope that you were able to take away some value that will help you thrive inside and out of the classroom. It would mean the world to me if you could take 5 seconds right now and leave a review on this podcast. And if you found this podcast especially helpful, make sure to take a screenshot of this episode right now and tag me on your socials to let me know you're listening. As always, remember that we are stronger together. With all the love in the world, Helena, aka the Present Teacher. See you next time, Teacher Bestie.